Do you want to know how to write functions in its proper function notation? Well, you have come to the right place. Now, before we answer that question, we first want to define quickly what a function is, right? In order to do the notation, we should truly understand what functions are. Now, all that functions are, and I'll start writing over here, all that functions are is that first off, or maybe we'll just say function. First off, all functions are fun. Who put the fun in functions? We will, right? This is going to be fun. But all functions they're just rules, right? It's a rule, generally speaking, right? There's tons of rules in life. One rule that I had growing up was I got to be in bed before 10 o'clock until I was 21. Sad life. Sad life. But moving on, a function is a rule that describes, or we'll say that tells, right? So basically a rule that describes how one quantity or one thing depends on the other thing or other quantity. And I'm putting depends in big capital letters because that is truly important here. A function is a rule that describes how one quantity depends on another quantity, or we could say another thing. But I will put quantity here. Okay, now, there are tons of rules in the universe that have this idea, that there is a rule that describes how one thing depends or is dependent on another thing. One big example that I can give, and maybe we'll just say example, is height, right? As we get older, from a baby to a toddler to a child, right, to an adult, what happens to our height generally? Yeah, it goes up, right? It increases. And one thing depends on the other, right? Our height, how tall we are, depends, and I'm putting that in big caps again, right? Because that's truly important. Height depends on age. As we get older in our years, our height will generally increase. From 2 years old to 20 years old, our height should increase. But then, turns out that as we get older and we reach our older years, our golden years, our height will start dwindling downward, right? That's due to gravity, but that's because of another concept. But this whole thing is that one thing, height depends on age. So that's basically what a function is. It's just a rule that states what depends on something else. Cool? Cool. Now let's start getting into that notation. And when we're talking about the notation, we're talking about the equations, right? We're talking about the equations where we like to put in numbers and we're putting in variables. So that's what we're getting into now. But let's just say that how do we define a function in an equation, right? Here it is in words, right? It's a rule, but we can't be writing this out, this whole thing. When we're doing equations, we need quick shortcuts. So, generally, functions will be used in terms of letters. So, functions will be shown as letters in our equations. I know, mathematicians were very unique back in the day, and they were so unique that they said, what letter should we use if we wanted to define a function? If you guessed F, you are absolutely correct. How unique is that? But that makes it easy, right? So the number one letter that you will see for a function is the F letter. Normally it's written in this cute little F, but you could draw a regular F as well. And the three biggest letters that they use for functions is definitely F, but maybe you might see G, and maybe you might see H. Now, could it be any other letter? Absolutely. But these are just the major 3 that you will see throughout your math course. So when we are defining a function, we are just saying a letter. Okay. So now let's start putting it together. Well, let's say that I have a function, and I'm going to do the general f, right? And we did say that a function is a rule. So we're going to say this function f is a rule. And now all you got to say is what the rule is. You could think of anything, right? You could say add 1 to a number, add 2 to a number, add 3 to a number, divide the number by 3, right? Anything in terms of mathematical, that makes mathematical sense. Maybe what I'll do is I will say square the number. Make it a little bit interesting, right? Okay. So here is my specific function. My specific function in our case is f. And we know that all functions are rules. And in our case, the rule is whatever that number is, we must square that number. When did this turn into a game show? I have no idea, but I'm having fun. Now, let's get a little bit more in depth, right? We're getting to that notation. Now, let's go on and say, how do we call out what number we want to square? Well, that's where the parentheses come in. I'm going to say f, so there's my function. I'm calling out the rule. And then let's just say I want to apply the rule to number, 2. This is how I would say it in notation form. Just keep in mind that this is not multiplication. I am not taking my function and timesing it by 2. What this is basically saying is apply the function to number 2. Well, applications. What are we essentially going to do? Well, we're going to take that number, and technically, as of right now, this could be any number, right? But I'm saying that I want to do it for 2. So we're going to take that number, and we are going to square it. So we're going to take that number and square it. So that means raised to the second. So in this case, 2 squared is 4. Let's do the same rule again. I'm going to take my function, f, that's the rule, and I want to apply it to another number. You tell me. Did you say -3? If you did, cool, right? If not, try out yours. Let's see. Now, keep in mind that this is not multiplication. We are taking our rule, f, and we are applying it to number -3. So, our rule said that whatever number it is, we got to square that number. So, we're going to take -3, and we're going to square it. -3 squared, this is -3 times -3, right? The square tells me how many of these I have. So -3 times -3 is a 9. Positive 9. Negative times negative is a positive. So now we've seen 2 scenarios. Let's just wrap this up and give a general function notation, which we will turn it into an equation. So we have to start with our rule. In this case, we did say that our rule was f. So there it was. And we need those parentheses to say who are we calling out for. Now, in this case, we said that it could literally be any number. We chose 2. Sure. We chose -3. Sure. Could you have chose 4? Sure. Could you have chose 10,000? Absolutely. If we want to express all the numbers, that's when we use a variable. Because it could be 2, could be -3, could be 4, could be -10. That's when we say x. Now, we don't have to say x, but we definitely have to say a variable. And the number 1 variable in mathematics is letter x, right? You always got to solve for x. Where is it? There it is. Where's x? But this is your function notation. This is half of it. It's always going to be f of x. And that's how you say this. So for example, this f with the parentheses of 2 is f of 2. You're applying the rule to that number 2. So f of 2, give the rule of number 2. This would be f of negative 3. So this would be f of x. Now, in our case, what does f of x equal? Where we want to square the number. And we now say that it's literally any number. What's the variable that we said? It was x. And all we have to do is square that value. So x squared. And you have successfully written your notation, your function notation. This is the function notation. I love it. Now let's do one problem before we go, just to solidify what we've learned. So, are you ready? Let's go for a ride. Okay, so here we go. We want to express the rule in function notation. So we got this. Function notation, that's just the equation expression, right? The equation equivalent to what's going on in words. They gave us the words, we got to give the equation. We got this. Now, for this function notation, we need to multiply by 3 and then subtract 5. Okay? Now, with this wording, right, it says that we want to multiply by 3. But maybe a question that's coming in your mind is multiply what? Right? Multiply what by 3? What do you think? We'll say, multiply what? Yeah, we got to multiply a number. Now, did they express to us what number we are multiplying by 3? No, right? Could have been 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Could have been 4 that they wanted us to multiply. They could have been, it could have been negative 12, 17. But it seems like it's a general number that they want us to multiply by 3. So what do we use when we're trying to encompass all the numbers? That is correct. We need that variable. And in our case, they don't specifically say what variable we want to use. So give me any variable. Let's go with x, right? We love x. So we're going to take that general variable and multiply it by 3. So we got to take that 3 and we're going to times it by x. That's this first part. So this should be done first. And maybe I'll do that in a different color. Okay. Now the only reason why that comes first is because in the second part it says, then we should do this. So we multiply by 3 first, boom, 3 times x. Then, so second, we need to subtract 5. So subtraction is a negative or minusing something. So I'm going to say minus, and they're saying that it should be 5. So 5. We got the hard part done. We know that this is going to be our expression for now, but let's turn it into an equation. Keep in mind that an expression does not have an equal sign. An equation needs to have the equal sign. So this whole thing has to be the function callout. Now, once again, they did not state what function we should use, right? But we need to say that we have some type of function because that's the rule. So, call out whatever letter you would like for the function. Me personally, I always like to go for the letter F because it's fun, it's F, it's function. So maybe I'll do that cute little F there. So we're going to say, okay, here's my function name. I'm calling it F. Now we have to say that it's F of something. We need to use those parentheses. And what did we say? Did we say a specific number or did we make it general? Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We made it general. We opened it up to all possibilities, and we used that variable x. So the x goes in the parenthesis, and that's basically what this means. That means f of x. Apply the rule to x. That's all that is, and that's how you say this part of the formula or equation. So f of x equals 3x minus 5, and we are done. That is boxed off, and you are done with this question. Ooh, that's nice. And maybe I'll just get rid of this. We'll just put this up here. F of x equals 3x minus 5. I love it. Okay, friends, that's a wrap on today's lesson, all about how to find function notations. And in our next lesson, we're going to be tackling the opposite. So we're going to have function notations and then try to write them out in words. So make sure to check that out. But before you go, since this is all still fresh in your brain, it's a great idea to try some practice problems. And we've got loads of them waiting for you at glazersguide.com to help you master this topic. The link is in the description and at the end of the video, so go on, click on over. And remember, for more practice and more fun, head on over to glazersguide.com. See you there and have an awesome day.
For more practice and for more fun, go to glazersguide.com.
And for more practice and for more fun, come on, go to glazersguide.com.